This exercise playing all major scales in 2 minutes. And that's it. The end, right? No. The playing a scale in 2 minutes on its own doesn't really mean anything. Doesn't really have much merit to it. It's not like a merit badge or anything. Not a, hey, look at me, I can play all the major scales in under 2 minutes. It's not that impressive. There's tons of people who can play way, 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 way faster than that. And it's not going to impress the ladies. The most of them. Guys can be a little bit cooler about that. I mean, speed, playing fast. That's awesome. But basically, the exercise itself, you can use it in terms of just keeping your fingers limber. I mean, once you get busy with this and that, for example, I would use it if it gets to the point where you haven't touched the keyboard or piano for days already and it's getting into weeks, then it's something that personally I might try to do just to keep some familiarity, general familiarity with the keys, like different keys, not the keyboard keys, and just to keep the fingers moving and such, because the muscles do, especially once you get older, start breaking down and all that stuff. So just going through the exercise, and hopefully you have 2 minutes in a day to just spend some time if you don't have time to actually practice. The other thing about this is it's not the exercise itself that is important, more so the information that it gives you and what you choose to or want to do with that information. So for example, here, if I were to use this 2 minute scale as a guide for my personal practice, as I'm doing this is actually more of an active style practice versus a passive. So for example, passive style would be me just running through all the scales, all the keys, just to keep my fingers in it, 2 minutes, done. Active is paying attention to everything that's going on as the scales are being played, just to see what needs to be corrected. Just rewinding a little bit. So I played 4 octaves here, 4 octaves in 2 minutes or so, and that's going through all of the major keys. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So all 12 of the keys. And for those of you who play by ear, then it's just make sure you go through all of them. Other than that, common approaches may be playing up by fifths, up or down by fifths or fourths, and that'll get you through all of them. So that's the circle of fifths or circle of fourths for any theory people out there or whatever. You can also go chromatically as well. It's nice to alternate between which one you choose to do, just to keep the mind flexible as well, because eventually with any of these types of practices, the mind will eventually lock into this is how you do it. So like after C comes G, that's the order of the sharps or order of the flats. Or if you do chromatically, so I mean, eventually your brain's gonna clue in and be able to run through those pretty quickly. But mixing them up is nice. Otherwise, again, you get locked into this is how this is played, and the order, etc., etc. And when you try and break that order, things can kind of fall apart. And that's what we're just trying to guard against by mixing things up. So again, going up by order, going up by fifths, upward, fourths as well. Either one, those ones work really nicely because eventually you get to all of the keys. So up by fifths is what I did. So that's C major, G major, D major, A major. And again, these are actually going through the order of sharps or flats. So 3 sharps here, into 4 sharps, into 5 sharps. So a bit of theory here. If you don't care for it, then don't tune out for a little bit. This is where the enharmonic change comes across. Enharmonic, of course, just more or less being the same tone but different letter. So here we have 5 sharps, B major, enharmonically the same as C flat major, which has 7 flats. And this is where the turnaround occurs. Now I'm not going up any old fifths. These are technically perfect fifths, or you can just think of whatever the 5th note of the key that you just happen to be playing, if again you're going by ear. So here's G flat major slash G flat major slash F sharp major, so 6 sharps or 6 flats. Going into D flat major slash C sharp major, so that's 7 sharps or 5 flats depending on the key. And then now where we were going up in sharps, now we're descending by the flats. So here's your 4 flats: A flat major, E flat major 3, B flat major 2, and then F major 4 1, and then of course the 5th of F major, C major, hence the circle of fifths. So just a little background of the exercise itself. Getting back to collecting the information that you're going to use for your practice. Personally for me, right now what I'm dealing with is, well, breaking apart. That is my fingers losing sync. So just the way the hands are built and such. Ascending, if you're playing at the same time, left hand will be faster, and for these types of patterns at least. Whereas descending, your right hand will be faster. So of course it's just trying to match them up. So there's a number of different exercises that you can try. I mean, there's playing detached, playing staccato, that type of thing. To me, it's kind of, there could be technical issues involved as well. But to me right now, it's a mental thing, just to trying to get the feeling of the fingers lining up. Right now, it's giving off the feeling of the hands are just completely operating independently. We have these points where they have to play together, so that's where they do line up, but everything in between that falls apart. As long as they line up there, but you get that whole break apart sound. So just trying to drill that feeling, try to drill that into the mind, and the fingers of playing exactly together. So that's one thing. The next thing to keep in mind as well is the 2 minutes is kind of arbitrarily chosen. It's if you're going through and you kind of, your brain locks up or whatever in terms of figuring out the keys, that again could just be happening because of putting yourself under a little bit of pressure, trying to go from one to the next to keep it within a certain time frame. That is, if you're to just set out, I'm going to play G flat major, and you're like, on its own, you know what it is, right? But in context with everything else, sometimes there could be a little bit of a delay. You know, that's normal. However, if you find by doing this exercise, you can come across the keys where your fingers are stumbling a little bit, in which case that gives you another point of order to I gotta practice X key type of thing. For any of the keys involving the black keys, for example, one thing that I like paying attention to is finger placement. So for example, you can get the notes themselves. So technically it's accurate. Technically rhythm may be okay and you didn't hit any wrong notes, but intuitively, or just the feeling side of things, it's like you don't feel absolutely secure. So the camera may not pick this up. So for example, here, center of the black key is right here. So that's where my finger would be to feel the most secure. However, if playing through it at whatever speeds, this or this is happening, well, there's a good chance that I could slip off. You may not. Maybe you get used to living on the edge like this, and sure, if some people like to do so that's cool. If you want to adjust, be a bit more stable, there. So I don't know, there seems to be a weird life metaphor here. But we'll just set that aside. So when I would practice this, it's just paying attention to finger placement, making sure that as I'm playing, we have this security versus just been a little bit unsure of the finger placement itself. Eyes closed practice again can help with this. What eyes closed can help with as well is that whole enhancing your other senses, right? So just paying attention to how that feels, like here's the edge of the key, that's more or less the feeling that you want. Of course, paying attention to your fingers as well. Like if you're playing all of the black key scales, flat finger, of course that gives you a higher accuracy, but it can slow you down here and there. So, for example, so now I'm playing flat fingered. It's like, yeah, look at my accuracy. It's awesome, 100%, right? But as we see in this situation here, what that does is kind of gives me a false sense of security. So at this current speed, this particular technique that we're doing is I did hit it properly, but if I curve my finger up, I can see that I'm right on the edge. And it's such a feeling that I feel like I'm really, really going to slip off, especially to speed or any sort of power to it. But, I mean, it really, really, really depends on the situation. If you're playing something where accuracy is like utmost importance, then play like that. Flat-fingered, whatever. Just want to get the job done with, of course, without hurting your arms. With any of the RSI, whatever injuries that can come from this. And those are also points to consider as you play this. So, for example, I know personally if I'm not playing for a long time, technically should feel relaxed to play scales for an extended period of time. But once your little muscles in your arms and fingers and stuff start getting out of shape, they get tired and they get strained. So sometimes what I would do is there are some keys that feel a little bit more comfortable than others. You notice those ones will be faster usually. So as going through the exercise itself, if you're playing through a key, it's like, well, that one's a little sloppy, or you feel that extra strain in your arm, like you're really working for it, then that's what just keep hammering out over and over and over again. Well, just till arms get tired, that type of thing. Now, an important thing to note about this, however, is the type of pain that we're going for. So it's knowing the difference between, say, a good pain and a bad pain. Yeah, so like bad pain, of course. Not a doctor, so don't know if, yeah. But it's, so the repetitive strain types of injuries, usually, personally, I've found them like sharp pains, shooting up your fingers or up your hands, sometimes through your arm and at the elbow region as well. So any of those types of things, sharp shooting pains, generally pretty bad. So if you notice those, stop and either get it checked out or read up on it or something or other, but it's bad. Otherwise, the hurts so good type of pain, it's not masochistic, I don't think. I don't know. Like, it's, let's see, it's not the pain that's good, but the decision of carrying this cross because you've chosen to better yourself. Therefore, you will humbly push forward rather than, yeah, this pain's awesome, yeah. Not like that, I guess. Maybe that would be more masochistic. Anyways. Other things to consider is you can listen to how you're playing the scales themselves. So sometimes, maybe I was banging out the last note there, and it's like, well, I don't want to do that, or I don't like that sound. Work on tapering things out. Of course, here I'm slowing them down a little bit, so it's try to minimize that slowdown to give that tapered off sound. So you can also work on your general sound, your crescendos, work on how you want your scales, these types of things to sound. That's another point. So working on your dynamics, up and down, how you're ending, how you're going up to the top as well. You don't have to, once you get to the practice stage, of course, you don't have to worry about this whole 2-minute thing. Again, it was just a point for us to figure out what it is we want to be working on. So now you're working on your dynamics for the next X minutes or whatever. It's figuring out keys that you're not so familiar with. Maybe you have to work on them a little bit more, get them in your fingers, checking out placement, that type of thing as well. It's this information that you use to help guide your practice, and that's pretty much where the strength of this particular exercise comes from. Could you use other things for this? Of course. I'm just using this as an example, and this is what I kind of use. So yeah, make of it as you will. If you're playing this and you discover like a bunch of different things that you want to correct or you want to work on, there's that old saying, he who chases two hares type of thing. In which case, I would recommend isolating and just choosing one particular thing, one or two, to work on. So for example, if you're like, oh, my fingers are all messed up here, the sound's off, I'm playing out of sync, that type of thing. That's a lot to think about as you're going through your scales and such. So in trying to cover everything at the same time, you might be taking it way, way, way too slow, and your mind's scrambling way too much to actually make improvement in a timely manner. Like, you'll eventually get there in theory. It's just going to take a long time. So in which case it's like, okay, I'm going to work on keeping all my fingers curved. I'm going to work on playing relaxed, so that way I can build up my speed. But you notice here, oh, trying to play relaxed, or I'm trying to play exactly together, but now my fingers are playing flat, that type of thing. Keep that in mind. Because of the nature of this type of drilling, it's a brute force style. So anything that you're drilling, repeating ad nauseum, drills good habits and bad habits into your fingers. So it's like, well, doesn't that defeat the purpose of everything? This is where you want to mix things up a little bit. So you isolate the exercise, but don't spend too much time on it. How much time is going to be a personal thing, usually, but I don't know, arbitrarily 10 times or so maybe. Then mix it up to something else, as in choosing a different technique or layering on top something else. So again, for example, if I'm working on playing exactly together, but my fingers are off, playing flat, playing off position, maybe my fingering is just really bad too because I'm not really used to it either, but it's just total focus on keeping everything together. So if I keep doing this and playing like this, I'm developing really bad playing habits. I'm getting the feel for this and bad fingering. If you do it too much, of course, that starts to set in. So you don't want that. So as soon as possible, as soon as you feel comfortable, and even just to push yourself to test, that's why it's this whole analytical, intuitive process is you'll pick up on, now I'm going to try it a bit faster. Oops, things are totally messing up. So I'm not ready yet, or maybe it's too fast, got to slow down. So do so. But again, you constantly push yourself, test it out. If it works, cool. Push yourself again, or scale it back and then build up. Again, just method. Layering on top is once you get that exactly together, now I'm going to layer on top, keeping fingers curved. Or you can just work specifically on fingers curved. Oh, but now things are breaking apart and stuff. Obviously, layering things would be better, but of course, if it's just too much stuff to think about, then don't worry about it. Just do whatever works for you personally. So that's the scale in 2 minutes. Use it to keep your fingers limber. Especially just to keep your fingers working in the different keys, or take the information that you can gain from it to work on your practice. If they're like awesome to begin with, then